Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. Thank you for joining me on today's video. Today's video, I thought we would discuss some cases that I've heard of that I felt were pretty interesting, but are not necessarily long enough to be videos of their own. So I put 5 of these cases together because I did really want to speak about them, but again, they weren't big enough on their own, so here they are now. So today I just wanted to talk about these 5 cases, and let's start with the first one. Pre-warning, the first one is a little bit hard to hear, so if you do want to skip this very first one, about 2-3 minutes and you should be good. So our first case is discussing Lena Medina, the world's youngest mother. Now I'm probably going to butcher Lena's real name, so I do apologise, but I'm going to do my best. Lena was born Lena Marcela Medina de Gerardo on the 27th of September 1933 in Peru. Lena is famous for being the youngest mother ever documented in history. She gave birth when she was just 5 years old. It is said that because she gave birth at 5 years old and 7 months, she was actually 4 years old when she became pregnant. Now, of course, this does mean that poor Lena was sexually assaulted when she was 4 years old. The identity of her attacker has never been found, but her father was arrested on suspicion of abuse. He was arrested, but he was shortly released from custody due to a lack of evidence. The police did try and ask Lena who attacked her, but she could not give precise or concise answers. I mean, as well, she must have been absolutely terrified and really frightened as to what had happened to her. She probably didn't actually really know what had happened to her. And regardless of anything else, asking a 4-year-old for exact details of something traumatic is never going to be a precise answer, surely. Lena could not give birth naturally, as this would have likely killed her in the process, so she gave birth via caesarean section. It is said that Lena actually had fully grown parts, and by the time she was 2 or 3 years old, she had actually already started her period. Now this was just crazy to me because I'd never heard of anything like this. I've never heard of any other case in history where a child, a baby, has actually got the capacity to be able to get pregnant. I know the body is incredible, but this just absolutely wowed me. It's really devastating as well because puberty for any young girl can be really traumatic, really frightening, and sometimes really painful. And for a 2 or 3-year-old to already be going through this, it must have just been awful for her. It's really heartbreaking as well because she was probably experiencing the pain of periods, etc. But her parents probably just thought this was growing pains, so didn't think any more of it. But it is really devastating that she obviously did not get the help she needed because no one knew what she was going through. They actually only found out that Lena was pregnant when her abdomen started really swelling. They truly thought this was a tumour. And so they took her to the hospital to get her assessed. But when she was assessed, they found out that she was in her 7th month of pregnancy. Lena did give birth to a little boy, and Lena actually raised her son to believe that she was his sister. When the little boy was 10, he did get told that Lena was actually his mum and not his sister, which also I thought was incredibly young. The boy is 10 years old and his 15-year-old sister is now his mother. That must have been quite traumatizing too. A lot of newspapers and other reporters really wanted to talk to Lena, talk to the family, find out everything they could about this story, but each time the family turned them away. They were offered money, but even so, the family point blank refused to have these discussions with newspapers or their reporters. And I'm really glad that they did, because again, regardless of when Lena was being spoken to, whether she was 5 or whether she was 15, whether she was 20, it still would never have been a non-traumatizing experience for her. I do only think this is sad though because they might have caught who attacked Lena, but I think Lena had suffered enough. Lena did actually go on to fulfill a normal life, and she became a secretary in the same clinic where she was assessed. This allowed her to gain a stable income and pay for her son to go to school. She was also able to give herself an education. Later in life she got married and had a second son in 1972. There has been constant reporters to this day that still want to talk to Lena and share her story, but every single time she has refused. Lena is still living today, and at the time of recording she is 89 years old and still lives in Peru. The next story we're talking about is Rita Wolfenson. Rita's history is actually a really hard one to find, and the only information I could find on her was exactly what I'm going to tell you about in the next couple of minutes. So Rita was a lady who lived in Brooklyn. She was an elderly lady who was declared as legally blind. Rita did have a husband, and she had 2 sons, Michael and Louis, but unfortunately her husband passed away in 1987 and her son Michael passed away in 2003. Her other son Louis did actually live with her, but he moved out 20 years prior to this story. Rita was an excessive collector, and I mean she collected everything. Her house was completely cluttered and hoarded. She didn't often have people over because Rita was actually completely capable of living on her own by herself, but one day she did have a very nasty fall that led to her being hospitalized. Rita had recently reconnected with her brother, and because of this, when she went into hospital, he was called. He decided to stay with Rita and asked his wife if she could go back to Rita's home and grab some necessities, toiletries, a change of clothes, etc. However, when she went into the house, she found something so disturbing. Now, it was shocking enough already because no one knew that Rita was a hoarder, and apparently the smell of her house was really hard to stomach. So she was already dealing with that, but when she went upstairs, she found a fully intact skeleton wearing clothes. He was found laying on a mattress, and this was later discovered to be her son, Louis. Rita had believed that Louis had actually moved out 20 years ago, but actually it turns out that he had died upstairs in the house and literally decomposed in his clothes. Rita stuck to the statement that she had absolutely no idea that Louis had passed away in her home because she really did believe that he moved out 20 years prior. The police did believe Rita because the skeleton was laying in the exact position in which the body would have died. Because it was also found wearing clothes, a t-shirt, trousers and socks, the police believed Rita. The police did not believe that she had any involvement in the death of Louis, and because she was legally blind, that is why she did not report the body to the police. And any smell that occurred when the body was turning skeletal could have just been believed to be a smell of the hoarded waste or food that had been decaying in the home. I mean, that's pretty horrific, isn't it? So the next story is about Ronald McDonald. This does seem a weird one to add, but when I heard about this, I had a little, oh yeah moment, so I felt it was best to add it. So did you notice that once upon a time, besides its hamburgers, McDonald's was iconically known for its yellow M and Ronald McDonald? You remember that really eerie looking clown with the permanent smile attached to its face and its army of creepy friends? Yeah, that guy. Well, that guy suddenly disappeared, didn't he? And it turns out that he was phased out really slowly so that the public wouldn't notice. So there's two reasons as to why Ronald McDonald was phased out, and the first one was that it was no longer deemed acceptable via parents that a clown, a really fun, loving, if you see clowns that way, character was kind of pushing the idea of fast food on children. But also in 2016, something else happened which made Ronald McDonald no longer an ideal mascot for McDonald's. So in 2016, there was something worldwide known as the clown panic. In the United States, Canada and other countries around the world, there was actually multiple sightings of clowns in forests, near towns, by schools, in a menacing manner. People were actually really scared of these clowns because they would genuinely try and frighten people and just cause chaos. And I do actually remember seeing this when I was younger. I do remember seeing people in clown masks in town and other places that I went to. I don't remember them being bad, but they did feel intimidating. I do believe that this was mostly in America though, and because of this, Ronald McDonald lost the idea that he was fun and friendly and became more of an idea of fearsome and troublesome. Clowns had lost their positive representation, and so Ronald McDonald was stripped as the mascot for McDonald's. Our next story is Joanna of Castile. Joanna of Castile, or also known as Joanna the Mad, was born in 1479. She became Queen of Castile in 1504 and Queen of Aragon in 1516. Joanna was actually declared mad in her early years, but because she was part of a royal family, she had to be educated and trained to be in a formal marriage. Now apparently as well, Joanna was actually declared insane because she opposed religion, and back in those days, that is not what you did. Joanna had an arranged marriage to Philip, the Archduke of Austria. He was also known as Philip the Handsome. And Joanna was really happy about this marriage. Even though it was arranged, she was really happy to have been put with Philip because she just became very, very quickly obsessed with him. She fell head over heels in love with this guy. Apparently he really liked her too, and the two could not wait to get through their vows quick enough so that they could consummate their marriage. This went so well, they ended up having 6 children together. Not from that time, but obviously times down the road. They were very lustful of each other is what I'm trying to say. However, Philip didn't just like Joanna. Philip had a wandering eye and he was very known to have mistresses, etc. And he would often flirt with other ladies and he'd be very interesting in getting to know other ladies in a sexual manner. And as I'm sure you can guess, Joanna hated this. So Joanna actually does have a huge story and she is one that I might come back to in the future, but in this video I will summarise. Joanna was often imprisoned because of her adversity to religion. This was in a time when you absolutely, as I said before, do not question religion. Philip would also imprison Joanna in her chambers and he would actively refuse to go and see her. Philip would also regularly go away without Joanna and Joanna always wanted to be beside Philip. It was said that you knew your husband would be cheating on you and seeing other women, but you were not allowed to say a thing about it. However, Joanna did. She wouldn't just say things about it either, she would often fly into a jealous rage too. Philip did not like that Joanna got upset about his other mistresses, so he would lock her in her chambers and then actively just avoid her. He wouldn't check on her, he wouldn't make sure she was okay, he would just actively avoid her for days on end. Joanna actually found out about one of Philip's mistresses. Joanna was told that she was insanely beautiful and that Philip was in love with her. So Joanna decided to meet his mistress, and when she did, she actually cut off her hair. She made it so short in the hope that Philip would no longer find this woman attractive. However, this did not deter Philip at all. Joanna would try and win back Philip's affections by changing her own hair and her own clothes and the way she smelt, but Philip had totally lost interest. I also need to add here that poor Joanna was only 16 years old when she married Philip, and she fell head over heels for him. It was her first love, and Philip was apparently so charming, and he had all the right words and everything right to say, that he truly made Joanna feel that he loved her back. In 1507, Philip would suffer a 5-day illness and eventually die from typhoid fever. Joanna refused to leave his side even after he died. It is said that Joanna stayed by Philip's corpse for an uncomfortable amount of time, and even when they had put him in his casket, she opened it so she could kiss his feet. She also wanted the casket to be with her at all times. She would also only travel at night so that other women wouldn't be interested in Philip, even in death. Later, Philip did need to be buried, so Joanna ordered that he be buried outside of her window so that she could always keep an eye on him and be near to him until her death at age 75. The last one for today is asteroid AG-13. Did you know that in January 2017, the Earth almost got struck by an asteroid? It was a 100-foot asteroid, and scientists only knew how close it was propelling towards the Earth 2 days before it nearly hit. Now, a lot of people do believe that it would have burnt up into Earth's atmosphere, but if it had hit Earth, it would have caused major destruction. It was charging at Earth with great speed, and it actually did come closer to us than the Moon. It wouldn't have caused the human race to become extinct, but it would have caused significant damage. It was actually seen from Earth as a huge fireball. It was declared a big asteroid, but there are some sites that say it was a small one, which is actually more frightening to think about. The worst part of this is that this isn't actually Earth's first encounter. There has been numerous asteroids that have nearly hit Earth. So that's all from me today. Thank you so much for watching. I truly appreciate every view, every comment, every subscriber that joins my channel. So thank you so much for being here. This video was short, but it was just 5 stories that I'd heard of that I really just wanted to get out there. I do have another 5, so I may do another video if you guys like this content. The next time you see me, we'll actually be discussing a true crime, a murder. It is a wild one, so if you do want to see that, do feel free to subscribe, and then when the video goes live, you will be notified. As for comments, thank you so much again for all of them. I really do read them all. I'm having a bit of a problem at the moment when people reply to my replies of their first comment, if that makes sense. YouTube doesn't seem to show me, so if I haven't replied to your reply, I'm so sorry. I'm not doing it on purpose. I really do want to keep the conversation going, but YouTube is stopping that from happening. I'm sure though it's just user error. I'm sure I'm doing something wrong. But for now, that's all from me. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.